When people think of Broadway, most oftentimes they go back to the first Broadway show that they ever saw, or in the case of somebody like me who's not from New York, the first tour that they ever saw. But what about a cookie? Have I lost you? Okay, let me go back. So, when I was 8 years old, my parents took me to see the national tour of Cats that was going through my hometown of Lincoln, Nebraska. Yes, tours actually go through Nebraska. Okay, maybe not first nationals, but third or fourth nationals. Anyway, say what you will about Cats, but George W. Bush and my 8-year-old self were changed from that day forward. And I just spent the next 15 years doing nothing but living and breathing theater because I was bit by the Broadway bug. And I loved everything about Broadway. And so I wanted to go there and be there. And in 2008, I did it. I moved to New York, and it was nothing like Nebraska. How many people in this room are not from here? Show of hands? Exactly. So what I found is most people living in New York aren't actually from New York. And maybe that's because our dreams are bigger than the places that we got them started. In 42nd Street, Peggy Sawyer moves to New York because she doesn't want to be the biggest star in Allentown, Pennsylvania. She wants to be the biggest star in the world, and that can only happen on Broadway for her. So for the next 2.5 years, I spent all my time auditioning, like most actors, and I would get a role, and I'd be swept out of the city for a few months, and then I would come back and start auditioning again. And to me, Broadway was all about dreaming big. And I was living my dream. I was doing exactly what I thought I should be doing. I'm not exactly sure what that meant to me at the time, but what I did know is that it wasn't fulfilling me like I thought that it should. So that's part of the journey of life. Sometimes you encounter success, sometimes disappointment, but when you're unfulfilled, that's life telling you that it's time to adapt, to reimagine, and to move on and continue to dream big. So I stopped auditioning, and I decided to go back and start working in muggle jobs, which for those non-Harry Potter fans is what we call like the 9 to 5. So I did it to start learning practical skills to help me out when I eventually found out what it was that I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So I ended up going to work every day. And then I would come home, and at the end of a long day, I was baking cookies. And baking was something that I always liked since childhood, but now it was my stress reliever. The thing that I would come home at the end of the day, and I would just start getting my hands full of dough, and it was something that made me feel good, and at the same time, I was baking something tasty for myself. And then I realized I wasn't just relieving my stress. I was fueling my creativity. Because my goal wasn't just to create a chocolate chip cookie. I wanted to do something new, and I wanted to experiment with different ingredients, and I wanted to create something special and unique, and challenge myself to do it better and better each and every time. I mean, why photocopy something someone else has already perfected? I wanted to do something new and original. So my friends, who were the people who I eventually forced to start eating my cookies because I didn't want to eat all of them myself, they eventually started saying to me, "Why aren't you selling these?" And I was confused by that. Because why would I sell the thing that makes me so happy to do? And that is when I had what Oprah likes to call an aha moment. So many questions went through my head. How would I get started? Where would I get the money? How would I market myself? What's my gimmick? I had already answered most of these questions without even realizing it. I had already begun. I didn't need much money to do what I was doing. I would market myself as the new answer to the old American treat. I'd do for cookies what sprinkles did for cupcakes. Whoa, no, scratch that. Out with cupcakes, in with cookies. So I began perfecting my recipes, and using social media and the word of mouth, I got the word out about my product, and before I knew it, Schmackary's was born. Schmackary's, Zachary, Schmahl, Schmackary's, drop down, flip it, and reverse that. That's where it all came from. So before I knew it, cookies were flying out of my apartment. I mean, I went from getting a few orders a week. In a few months later, I was baking these overnight shifts and getting up to 50 dozen cookies out a day. So, and doing it all out of my 400 square foot apartment, 1 dozen cookies at a time. Thank God the health department didn't come by. And I have no idea how I made my relationship survive with that one, but the more that I sold, the more I fell in love with what I was doing, and I gave myself no option but to succeed and grow my business as fast as I possibly could. And every day when I would bake in my apartment, I just realized that I knew what was coming, and I spent every day thinking, how do I take this from my kitchen and ended up making it to that next step, which is a storefront. And I always thought of the storefront as my own little Broadway experience. Like Broadway, you know, I wanted a place where people could come and be transformed to another time and place. And I wanted that place to be the old-fashioned, all-American bake shop from my childhood. And like Broadway, you go to a show, and you want to be transported to a fantasy world for 2 hours. I wanted people to come to Schmackery's and be transported to a simpler place that felt like home. It may sound stupid, it's just cookies, but it does mean something. It was like my own little Norman Rockwell inside the hustle and bustle of the Big Apple. So this last May, we opened, and we had a line out the door on day 1. My official Broadway opening was a hit. So why? Well, I think maybe because we're not just a cookie cutter type of treat place that you could go in any neighborhood. We're giving people something special, and it starts with the experience, like she was saying, and the experience that people are getting. Because customer service is something that people are missing in New York from most places, and it's something that I desperately wanted when I moved here and that I needed. And so I want to give that to people. And even people who've lived here a long time and have become hardened New Yorkers still miss and still appreciate being treated like real people sometimes. I mean, and it's so important in our single-serving culture to be that business that has a heart and a soul alongside a quality product. Also, I took the opportunity to embrace the community around us, Broadway. And Broadway didn't just embrace us back. They became our biggest fans and advocates. Now, Schmackery's has been served and delivered to almost every single theater in New York City. And as he said, we have become the unofficial cookie of Broadway. I mean, we've been getting, on day 1, something that was so important to me is we got a tweet from Broadway Cares saying, "Welcome to the family." It really meant something to me. And tweets from everyone from Kristen Chenoweth to Eden Espinoza to the Fonz. Whew, I was starting to gain a following that I could have never expected. And one day I just sat there and smiled to myself and said, I finally made my dream come true. I made it on Broadway. Maybe not the way that I thought that I was going to, but this feels so much better than I could ever even tell you that it would have felt. To get the acceptance and praise from the people that I've admired since I was 8 years old. And sure, my story may just sound like a happy-go-lucky tale from some kid from Nebraska who came to New York and he had some good luck and made something happen. Yeah, maybe. But nothing should stop you from reaching your dreams, as long as you're flexible with the outcome. If you have the tools and you're willing to put in the hard work and put aside your ego and the willingness to make quick money, you can make it happen too. You just have to enjoy the journey and learn from it every step of the way. You have to find joy in what you're doing with life. Otherwise, why do it? 2 years ago, this was just my hobby. I just followed what came natural, and I gave myself no other option but to succeed. Was it hard work? Absolutely. It continues to be every day. But there's nothing that could make me as happy as following this dream from now and into the future. Even cats. So what's next? Well, I said Broadway's all about dreaming big. And as Frank Sinatra said, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. I don't know what the future holds. All I know is that I'm going to continue dreaming big and do it one cookie at a time. Thank you.